record, then the foghorn.
Yep, I did that too.
Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page 177, where it says during all this time, and will end on page 180, where it says nearly 4 years have passed. And our study tonight will start on page 180, the question which might, and will end on page 181, never let you down. And do we have any announcements?
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic. And yes, of course we do. Picklepalooza at my house, 4th of July. Come early, stay late. However you get here, if you know you're coming for sure, try and let me know. All of you are welcome. If you can't make it this year, there's always next year. But we would love to have you. So food, fun, celebration, meetings, fellowship, painting of the walls. You just never know what we might get into, but we have a damn good time all being in the same pickle barrel together. So we'd love to see you. That, and moving on, you have another announcement, Trish?
I do. For those of you who are home group members, whether you're in Tennessee at that point or not, our next group conscience will be on June 21st. So some of us might still be there and some of us might be home, but come on in for group conscience. Anyone who is not a home group member is still welcome to attend and listen, and we may even let you comment a time or two. You just won't have a vote.
You said June 21st. Did you mean July 21st?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I mean, it's okay. I get it. I get it what it's like to be a month off. So it's all okay. Okay, moving along with the meeting. Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, and I'm definitely a grateful recovered alcoholic. And welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our big book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation followed by our family's fog light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please beware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, is not to distract others, but probably even more likely to not distract yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. I will announce this is, however, a smoking meeting, so don't get hung up about all of that. And a friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's share. We will call on you in the order that hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are: focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study.
And let's get to those cute little monks to do what the monks do so well and enjoy your time with God, folks. Thank you. And please join us in our family's Foglight prayer on your screen in front of you. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light, so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
And let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Susan.
Hey everybody, my name is Susan. I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I have asked Nancy to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Nancy.
Nancy, alcoholic, recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism. Recovered, but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we would be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime. But we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. Page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned, and secretly we have recovered. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5 p.m. Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our Big Book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our Big Book study seriously because of this chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a Big Book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the forward to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX, of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up and after some relapsed, and the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time?
I believe we've got Georgina. Welcome.
Welcome, Georgina.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you for the welcome. Thank you.
And the recovered alcoholics. All right, these are your potential sponsors. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week?
We just made 11 months this past weekend on the 1st.
Oh, congratulations. Well, hang on just a second. Trish is working on a chip. Trish the chip chick.
Mom.
Boy, that was hard to say.
There you go.
Congratulations, Brian.
Thank you.
Glad you keep coming back to us.
Yes. If you should require a Big Book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time is questionable. Please remember to practice our seventh tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo or PayPal posted in chat and on the screen. Our suggestion is to purchase a Big Book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website, posted also in the chat. Thank you, and see you guys next week.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you, Nancy, for your service tonight. Welcome, Georgina, and congratulations, Brian. And let me get back to my script here because it tells me what I'm supposed to say next. You would think that I'd have this memorized, but I do not. From chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out on which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 6. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 7. Please refer to page 562 of the book Alcoholics Anonymous, and come on in, Alyssa.
Thank you, Trish. Alyssa, recovered alcoholic. So this is the Traditions Illustrated, and this is 7th tradition, which is every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. It says we do have to be practical. A group can hardly hold its regular meetings on a street corner, and an empty basket won't fill a coffee urn. As soon as we become active in a group, we learn how many expenses are involved in making its meetings effective. Then our horizons broaden. What about that inner group or central office so many of us called to ask for help? Phone companies don't give free service. Beyond our own locality, we learn about AA General Service Office and the work it does for groups everywhere. AA activity is self-supporting at all levels, and in every case, the responsibility comes right back to us, the individual members, for we are AA. Perhaps, especially when we are very new, our contributions clink rather than rustle. The first members were in the same fix, and it seemed to them that AA would need more outside help than the modest gifts then coming in. Their plans required grand-scale philanthropy. Tradition 6 hadn't evolved yet. Bill W. recalled a scheme for a chain of hospitals. But John D. Rockefeller Jr., an early friend, said, "I'm afraid that money will spoil this thing." A few AAs had already reached the same conclusion. Gradually, this minority became a majority as experience showed that members themselves could provide enough to finance AA's proper aim. In its simplest application, Tradition 7 is easily understood. When we hear about a new AA group being started with funds from a federal anti-poverty program, our quick reaction is somebody goofed. But then we come to borderline cases. Groups put on a raffle for the benefit of their central office and invite the public to buy tickets. A hometown paper runs an ad for an AA dance and show. Both projects would be routine for any other society. For us, both mean that we've got the hand out again, asking non-members for money. Often, of course, we don't have to ask. AA is now high on the worthy cause list. GSO and groups politically turn down many unsolicited gifts and bequests. In Tradition 7, there's a note of realism. Handsome gifts may have strings attached. We even put a limit of $10,000 on the amount members may leave to AA in their wills, and a limit of $5,000 that they may contribute annually while living, so that none of us can buy influence in AA, no matter how rich we are. Money may pose a different problem if a group treasury goes too fat, beyond a prudent reserve, squabbing over uses for the spare cash. Groups have lost their unity and strayed from their purpose. But there's one simple solution that strengthens our unity and advances our purpose. Give the excess to AA, activities and services. And, just to say that what we do as a group, of course, we'll discuss that in our group conscience, which Trish announced that for next month. But it takes a certain amount to run the room. And then we give a certain percentage to area, district, and central office. and it's usually a rotating amount, so we don't keep an over excess. And we had someone who actually passed, and they made a contribution to AA, but it was up to our group, and they stayed within the limits of what they asked for personal donations. So thank you for letting me be your traditionalist.
Thank you, Alyssa. Excellent. And folks, if you want to know more about what this group does with our seventh tradition, come to our business meeting, even if you're not a home group member. Who knows? It may motivate you to decide to become a home group member. We would love to have you. And now it's time for our weekly segment of Thatting in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of those things we often hear is there are no musts in the program. So Lisa is going to come in and tell us what it has to say about that right out of the book on page 79 in the second paragraph. Welcome, Lisa.
I am Lisa. I'm an alcoholic. We must not shrink at anything.
Thank you.
Lisa. As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
As we study, oh boy, I'm about to read your line again. In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book study guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff of the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page 177, which will be read tonight by Linda, followed by our study portion, which will be read by Donald. After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion that Donald reads. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
And that page information is in the chat, folks. Basically, in English, what that means is we are going to read the material once through and then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the question gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comments, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experiences with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished. However.
Yeah, thank you. I was busy doing something else. However, Big Book study is not therapy. This is one of my favorite lines, too. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example, with a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol, through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
And how we arrived at this point, we didn't just wake up today and say, we're going to study the last 2 pages of Dr. Bob's story. This is a 94-week book study from beginning to end, starting at the title page. And we do absolutely everything, the preface, the forwards, the doctor's opinion, every chapter, line by line, with this question and answer format. Tonight we are in week 91 of our 3rd season of doing this. And next week we will move into the traditions, and we will spend 2 weeks on the traditions through the question and answer format. And then we will top it all off with our 4th visit to the spiritual experience as a standalone meeting. And that's, we feel that that's very important, because it's important to recognize if you're having a spiritual experience, spiritual awakening. And it is a fantastic way to go. And I just crunched the numbers real quick. This is pretty approximately. We have been doing this study for 260 weeks. We're in our 5th year. We're about to wrap up our 3rd season in another 3 weeks, and then we will be starting season 4 and doing it all over again. Throughout that journey, we have also developed a website. We podcast the meeting so that you can study along with the book when you're not with us. It's a great study resource to listen to the podcast. We also started a YouTube channel, audio only, that has this study, our 4-step workshop, and our foundations meeting on it, which are all great study resources, not only for helping ourselves, but to help another alcoholic recover. So we have loved being on this journey with you. Some of you have been with us the entire 5 years, some of us throughout this last year, but it is certainly my hope that you will come back and join us again. And bring a friend of me. Bring your dog named Ralph if that's what makes you happy. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. I don't have a dog named Ralph, though. Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. And just a reminder, please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and our YouTube channel. And with that note, Linda, if you could come on in with our recap, I would appreciate it.
Just so everybody knows, we're on page 177 in this recap.
And we're going to start off with during all
Yeah.
this time. So that would be like the 2nd paragraph, everybody. My name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. During all this time, we became more or less ostracized by our friends. I'm going to turn up my sound. Okay, by our friends. We would not be invited out because I would surely get tight, and my wife dared not invite people in for the same reason. My phobia for sleeplessness demanded that I get drunk every night, but in order to get more liquor for the next night, I had to stay sober during the day, at least up to 4 hours. Up to 4 o'clock. This routine went on with few interruptions for 17 years. It was really a horrible, I had to, wait. I'm sorry, I just lost my place. Phobia, I got drunk every night.
You were at
Okay.
17 years.
I had to stay sober during the day, at least up to 4 o'clock. This routine went on with few interruptions for 17 years. It was really a horrible nightmare. This earning money, getting liquor, smuggling it home, getting drunk, morning jitters, taking large doses of sedatives to make it possible for me to earn more money, and so on ad nauseum. I used to promise my wife, my friends, and my children that I would drink no more, promises which seldom kept me sober, even through the day. Even through the day, though, I was very sincere when I made them. For the benefit of those experimentally inclined, I should mention the so-called beer experiment. And when beer first came back, I thought that I was safe. I could drink all I wanted of that. It was harmless. Nobody ever got drunk on beer. So I filled the cellar full with the permission of my good wife. It was not long before I was drinking at least a case and a half a day. I put on 30 pounds of weight in about 2 months, looked like a pig, and was uncomfortable from shortness of breath. It then occurred to me that after one was all smelled up with beer, nobody could tell what had been drunk. So I began to fortify my beer with straight alcohol. Of course, the result was very bad, and that ended the beer experiment. About the time of the beer experiment, I was thrown in with a crowd of people who attracted me because of their seeming poise, health, and happiness. They spoke great freedom from embarrassment, which I could never do, and they seemed very much at ease on all occasions, appeared very healthy. More than these attributes, they seemed to be happy. I was self-conscious and ill at ease. Most of the time, my health was at the breaking point, and I was thoroughly miserable. I sensed they had something and I did not have, from which I might readily profit. I learned that it was something of a spiritual nature, which did not appeal to me very much, but I thought it could do no harm. I gave the matter much time and study for the next 2.5 hours, but I still got tight every night. Nevertheless, I read everything I could find and talked to everyone who I thought knew anything about it. My wife became deeply interested, and it was her interest that sustained mine. Though I at no time passed that it might be, excuse me, I at no time sensed that it might be an answer to my liquor problem. How my wife kept her faith and courage during all those years, I'll never know. But she did. If she had not, I know I would have been dead a long time ago. For some reason, we alcoholics seem to have the gift of picking out the world's finest women. Why they should be subjected to the tortures we inflict upon them, I cannot explain. About this time, a lady called up my wife one Saturday afternoon, saying she wanted me to come over that evening to meet a friend of hers who might help me. It was the day before Mother's Day, and I had come home plastered, carrying a big potted plant, which I sat down on the table and forthwith went upstairs and passed out. The next day she called again, wishing to be polite. Though I felt very badly, I said, let's make the call, and extracted my wife with a promise that would not stay over 15 minutes. We entered her house at exactly 5 o'clock, and it was 11:15 when we left. I had a couple of shorter talks with this man afterwards and stopped drinking abruptly. This dry spell lasted for about 3 weeks. When I went to Atlantic City to attend several days meeting of a national society of which I was a member, I drank all the scotch they had on the train and bought several quarts on my way to the hotel. This was on Sunday. I got tight that night, stayed sober Monday till after the dinner, and then proceeded to get tight again. I drank all I dared in the bar, and then went to my room to finish the job. Tuesday, I started in the morning, getting well organized by noon. I did not want to disgrace myself, so I then checked out. I bought some more liquor on the way to the depot. I had to wait some time for the train. I remembered nothing from then on until I woke up at a friend's house in a town near home. And these good people notified my wife, who sent my newly made friend over to get me. He came and got me home to bed and gave me a few drinks that night and one bottle of beer the next morning. This was June 10th, 1935, and that was my last drink. As I wrote, nearly 4 years had passed.
Thank you, Linda. And Donald, before you come in, we've got 4 hands. We can do the questions with 4 hands, but if one more person wants to jump in, that's okay too. So Donald, come on in with this week's study.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donald, and I am a grateful, recovered Gandalf, but I'm still an alcoholic. Okay, starting on page 180. Hey, I did a 180. I turned myself around. Hokey pokey. The question that might naturally come into your mind would be, what did the man do or say that was different from what others had done or said? It must be remembered that I had read a great deal and talked to everyone who knew or thought they experiences known to man, but who had been cured by the very means I had been trying to employ. This is to say, the spiritual approach. He gave me information about the subject of alcoholism, which was undoubtedly helpful. Of far more importance was the fact that he was the first living human with whom I had ever talked who knew what he was talking about in regard to alcoholism from actual experience. In other words, he talked my language. He knew all the answers, and certainly not because he had picked them up in his reading. It is a most wonderful blessing to be relieved of the terrible curse with which I was afflicted. My health is good, and I have regained my self-respect and the respect of my colleagues. My home life is ideal, and my business is as good as can be expected in these uncertain times. I spend a great deal of time passing on what I have learned to others who want it and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. 1, sense of duty. 2, it's a pleasure. 3, because in doing so, I am paying my debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. Number 4, because every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. Wow, got me right here. Unlike most of our crowd, I did not get over my craving for liquor much during the first 2.5 years of the abstinence. It was almost always with me, but at no time have I been anywhere near yielding. I used to get terribly upset when I saw my friends drink and knew I could not. But I schooled myself to believe that though I once had the same privilege, I had abused it so frighteningly that it was withdrawn. So it doesn't behoove me to squawk about it, for after all, nobody ever had to throw me down and pour liquor down my throat. If you think you're an atheist, an agnostic, or a skeptic, or have any other form of intellectual pride which keeps you from accepting what is in this book, I feel sorry for you. If you think you are strong enough to beat the game alone, that is your affair. But if you really and truly want to quit drinking liquor for good and all, and sincerely feel that you must have some help, we know that we have an answer for you. It never fails if you go about it with one half the zeal you had been in the habit of showing when you were getting another drink. Your Heavenly Father will never let you down.
Thank you, Donald. And we will go back to where Donald started reading, towards the top of 180, and Jamie's got a couple of comments to come in. But before we start that, just to confirm, our batting order tonight is Kenny, Linda, William, Nancy, Terry, and Donald. You put your hand up and then took it back down. So, are you in or out?
Would you call that sleight of hand?
Yes.
I was trying to unmute.
Okay, so we will leave you out of the batting order.
If you need me, I will be following along. I would be more than happy to join in.
We are good with the 5 with the hands up, so thank you for clarifying. So, Jamie, you get to start out with a comment.
Okay, first comment is, Trish, I just sent you a text to take care of after the meeting. That's the first comment. Okay, good evening, family. A couple of comments coming at you, and I'll have a few through this. At this time, Bill was sober for 6 months. yet was strong enough in his sobriety to give Dr. Bob a few drinks when he returned from his trip. These drinks were to keep away the jitters so Dr. Bob could perform surgery the next day. Dr. Bob never had another drink. Second comment, let us ask ourselves individually if we are spiritually prepared to do 12-step work with a wet one in this fashion.
Thank you. And that's a good question to ponder. I know what my answer is. So, Kenny, you get the first question. And what question would naturally come to mind of most people?
The question which might naturally come into your mind would be, what did the man do or say that was different from what others had done or said?
Thank you. And Linda, what must be remembered? You're muted. And Nancy, you're also muted, so go ahead and unmute.
Okay. Where am I at?
It must be remembered.
Thank you. It must be remembered that I had read a great deal and talked to everyone who knew or thought they knew anything about the subject of alcoholism.
Thank you. And William, welcome. You have a 3-part question. A, what had Bill experienced that made the difference for Dr. Bob? B, actually it's a 2-part question. And B, what had each of these 2 men tried that worked for Bill but did not work for Dr. Bob?
Well, this was a man who had experienced many years of frightful drinking, who had most of all the drunkards experience known to man, but who had been cured by the very means I had been trying to employ, that to save the spiritual porch.
Thank
He
you.
gave the information.
Preach. And Nancy, what information did Bill have that Dr. Bob did not have?
He gave me information about the subject of alcoholism, which was undoubtedly helpful.
And another comment, folks. The doctor's opinion tells us we have a 3-fold disease: spiritual malady, mental obsession, and phenomenon of craving, which result from the allergy to alcohol.
Thank you. And Terry, a 2-part question for you. A, what was the single most important thing that helped Dr. Bob? And B, in other words, Bill did what?
Far more important was the fact that he was the first living human with whom I had ever talked, who knew what he was talking about in regard to alcoholism from actual experience.
And one more sentence, please.
In other words, he talked my language.
Thank you. And if you're noticing in the book, that's the squiggly writing, which means it's something important to pay attention to. Jamie, you have a comment?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. This shows us the great importance of one alcoholic helping another. We understand like no one else can.
And back to you, Kenny. What did Bill know?
He knew all the answers, and certainly not because he had picked them up in his reading.
Thank you. And Linda, what was a most wonderful blessing?
It was a most wonderful blessing to be relieved of the terrible curse with which I was afflicted.
Thank you. And William, what 3 things did he say he had regained?
My health is good, and I have regained my self-respect and the respect of my colleagues.
Thank you so much. Nancy, what other 2 things were good?
My home life is ideal, and my business is as good as can be expected in this uncertain times.
Thank you so much. And Terry, what did Dr. Bob say he did with a great deal of his time?
I spent a great deal of my time passing on what I learned to others who want and needed it badly.
Thank you. And Kenny, does he tell us why? And please stop at the colon. Stop at the 2 dots.
Okay, I learned.
Oh,
No.
Right. I do for 4 reasons.
Thank you.
Let us examine the reasons he gives for all the time he spent trying to help other alcoholics.
And Linda, reason 1.
Sense of duty.
And William, reason 2.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Nancy, reason 3.
Because in so doing, I have paid the debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me.
Thank you. And Terry, reason 4.
Because every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip.
Thank you. And Kenny, back to you with a 2-part question. A, what did Dr. Bob experience in early sobriety? And B, how long did this last?
Unlike most of our crowd, I did not get over my craving for liquor much during the first 2.5 years of abstinence.
Thank you. Linda, was it an occasional thing?
It was almost always with me.
Thank you. William, but at no time was he what?
But at no time have I been anywhere near yearling.
Thank you so much. Nancy, a 2-part question for you. A, what used to upset him? And B, what thinking did he develop to combat this?
I used to get terribly upset when I saw my friends drink and knew I could not. But I schooled myself to believe that though I once had the same privilege, I had abused it so frightfully that it was withdrawn.
Thank you. And Terry, a 2-part question. A, it didn't behoove him to what? And B, why was that?
So it doesn't behoove me to squawk about it, for after all, nobody ever had to throw me down and pour liquor down my throat.
Thank you. And Kenny, a 3-part question. A, what kind of folks did he mention? B, that would keep them from what? And C, what were his feelings for these folks?
If you think you are an atheist, an agnostic, or skeptic, or have any other form of intellectual pride which keeps you from accepting what's in this book, I feel sorry for you.
Thank you. And Linda, who is responsible if you choose to take the challenge by yourself?
If you still think you are strong enough to beat the game alone, that is your affair.
And another comment, not everyone who comes to Alcoholics Anonymous wants a spiritual program of action or the support of the fellowship. If that is the case, we have to allow them to take the pathway they feel is best for them.
And William, a 3-part question. A, but if you really and truly want to do what? B, and sincerely feel you need what? C, what do we know?
If you really and truly want to quit drinking liquor for good and all, and sincerely feel that you must have some help, we know we have an answer for you.
Thank you. Nancy, a 2-part question. A, is it a reliable way? And B, if you will do what?
It never fails if you go about it with 1/2 the zeal you had been in the habit of showing when you were getting another drink.
Thank you. And Terry, you get our final question. Who will never let you down?
Your heavenly Father will never let you down.
Absolutely.
Amen.
So
Amen.
we're now going to open up for comments and questions and spiritual experiences that you have had based on this reading. So those of you who were readers, please, well, you've already remuted, so never mind. But the meeting is open, so I'm just waiting for some hands.
It's a dental chair kind of night.
We can call the monks back in.
We can.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. And I wanted to say right here in the italics on 180, it says it. Of far more importance was the fact that he was the first living human with whom I had ever talked, who knew what he was talking about in regard to alcoholism from actual experience. In other words, he talked my language. They talk about the language of the heart, and this is the identification. Now, if somebody's going to talk to me about alcoholism and they're not an alcoholic, that is in recovery, they're not going to understand. They're just not going, there's no way they're going to understand. They're going to be giving me information from maybe a book that they read, maybe something that they heard, but they're not going to be telling it to me from their actual experience, from in their gut, from in their heart. They're not going to understand me. So this is why I love making meetings, because whatever I share about, I shared about something and people were cracking up laughing, and I've shared things and people cried. Whatever I share, somebody's going to be able to identify. Somebody's going to be able to understand what it is. It's like that fifth step. What are you doing? Why do you keep doing it? We all understand what that's about. There's certain lingos and there's certain things in AA that we say and we can all identify with. I remember when somebody had broke their anonymity and we were out and the guy said hi and I said hi. He said, you're a friend of Bill? I said, no, I'm a friend of Lois. And then I did like that, and he did like that too, and we laughed. And it's like our little secret code, and we understand, we identify, and I don't have to be, I'm not judged, if I'm sharing about something, and it's something that I'm still not understanding. It might be something that I'm still struggling with. I remember I had to accept the fact that my oldest son is, he's active. He's a grown man. He can do what he wants. But I was struggling with that, and someone came over to me that has a child that, is active, and they said it's going to be all right. They got a bottom to reach, and you cannot fix it for him. That is not a little kid anymore. You can't fix him. Even though you love him, and that's your child, and you're concerned, and you don't want, him to go to ruin, you cannot fix him. And it was like it says in the big book about acceptance, and it had to be another alcoholic to explain that to me, because they had not been an alcoholic. I would have been like, mind your business. What do you know? How can you identify? How can you tell me anything? So that's why I like Alcoholics Anonymous. It's my own little special community, my own little special world that I can go in and I can just be myself, and people understand me. And that was the biggest thing that I drank. I felt nobody understand me, nobody heard me, nobody listened to me. And today my daughter was talking to me and she said, I need you to listen to me because sometimes I feel like you're not listening to me. And I said, but I am listening to you. She said, but I feel like you're not. So what I did is I just looked at her and I listened to her. She said, don't be sarcastic, because I did like that. And she said, don't be sarcastic. She said, listen to me, take me seriously. And I listened to her. And I stayed patient and I listened to her. And I said, before I say something back to you, I need to wait a couple of seconds, before I even give you any feedback. And it's always good to pause before you answer someone. It's always good to pause. Let them know that you weren't just not saying anything just so they could finish and then you give them a response. Let them know that you really were listening, that you really did hear them. And that was the biggest part of my alcoholism. No, the world didn't understand me. Woe with me. People understood me. There was the right people that understood me. And I wasn't unique. I was not unique. I thought I was. But, people with the same things that I was going through, my fears, my worries, my overthinking, And today, me and her going to this appointment, it was a lot of overthinking, and she's in the 12-step program too. And it was like, I just need you to bring it down a couple of notches when we go back here to deal with these people. Just bring it down a couple of notches. She used the program on me, and I needed to hear that. God forbid if it would have been somebody else. I would have been like, what do you know? How are you telling me anything? And I always felt that way, that whoever I was talking to, if they wasn't in AA, they didn't understand. Giving me a scientific approach and, trying to rationalize stuff. And it's not like that. Not when you're talking to someone in recovery, not when you're talking to a recovering person. It's just certain things that we go through. And I'm not going to say it's a different world, but yeah, it is. From an alcoholic's mind and from our eyes, it is different than somebody that's not an alcoholic. We think in a certain way. We react in a certain way. We respond in a certain way. Thank you for letting me share. I think it's time. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. Glad you're here. Hi, Nancy.
Nancy Alcoholic. I like the next paragraph where it says, "It's a most wonderful blessing to be relieved of the terrible curse with which I was afflicted. My health is good, and I have regained my self-respect and respect of my colleagues. When I was out there, I did so many things that I didn't think I could forgive myself for everything that I've done. And, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror because I was disgusted with myself, with everything that I had to do to get my alcohol and my drugs. And thank God that God intervened in my life, that I was able to find a way to get into the program, even though, the first program I went to, I didn't stay sober. I stayed sober for 9 months and I went out again because I didn't think I was an alcoholic. And the things that I've done, it's like, it's no big deal. Everybody else was doing it. My thinking. But then it got worse that I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. And because of the shame and the remorse, the guilt, everything that I had gone through, and my daughter, with the promises that I used to make to my daughter that I would go visit her, but I was too busy taking care of myself, getting my drugs, getting my alcohol, getting my place to sleep. The last couple of years of my drinking and using, I didn't have a home. But I never thought I was homeless because I always had a place to sleep. I never slept in the street or in the alley. So I didn't think that I was an alcoholic. And I still have something, my ego. It was like my biggest enemy because I can rationalize and everything that I do, and it's awful, doing it over and over and over. Thank God for this program that I don't have to live that way anymore. With the God of my understanding and the people like you that shows me the way of a better life, a different life, and I'm very grateful. And my daughter, I have her in my life again, and it's a good life. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, there's life on life's turn I have to live with, but it is 1,000 times better than when I was out there, and I would not change anything in my life now that I could compare to the ones that I had out there. Like what some other people says, my worst day that I have in AA is I could never, it's never bad. I could always believe in the program that this too shall pass, and I don't have to kind of like, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of work staying sober and changing my life around that. But normal people do that every day, and I'm glad that I am an alcoholic because I have a way to find solutions to my problem. And I have thousands of people that I can ask for help, and thank you so much for letting me share.
Thank you, Nancy. So glad you're with us tonight. Hi, William.
Yes, I just want to say good afternoon to my family here. Choose the Bigfoot family. It's a pleasure to be here, and definitely identify with the story, Dr. Bob's story. And this weekend, we're going to be celebrating Dr. Bob's 90th sobriety days in New York. We do it annually. So this Saturday, we'll be celebrating his sobriety date. And it's an annual thing. We celebrate Bill during November with a dinner dance, but we have a big meeting for Dr. Bob. But this reading tonight is definitely identify with it in itself, and one of the things that I could see myself before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I could see myself after I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I tell you, I had went to churches, I went to psychologists, I tried to read self-help books, Ron Hubbard's book, and it's in the house in some place, but I don't know where it's at, because I've been living in the same place for 50 years. So that book is here. I got a whole lot of stuff up in here, you know what I mean? But I had all that stuff, but nothing really worked, and I understand whenever he met Bill, that key, because that's what happened to me. As long as you could tell me what was going on with me, I could find 3 things wrong with you, And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, they was telling their story, and that's when I began to identify with, and I certainly identified when Dr. Bob had that experience, because he said he had read books about alcoholism, he had did this and this, but here come a man who knew what he talked about, who told his drunk along and his ills and his thing, and that's what we do here, we come here and we talk about these things among each other. We have that language that Linda was talking about of the heart, where we get honesty with each other, because we all have walked that walk, you know what I mean? And if you haven't been there, with whatever trauma, whatever you have been through, we have that unconditional love for each other. So that's what I find in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's a part of it here. And when it talks about a sense of duty, and the reason why he do it, and definitely that's the reason why I do it. Once I found this treasure to help me get sober, I do whatever I can do to maintain so it can be there for the next person come along, just like William or whatever drunk come along. And I like the part where it went into agnosis. I seen myself in that too, where he say that because he have a way of writing, he don't leave nothing out, for an alcoholic. He don't leave nothing out, you know what I mean? He said, if you think you are agnostic, atheist, agnostic, skeptic, or have any other form of intelligent pride which keep you from accepting what is in this book. And what mine was, I got willpower. That's what I always said. I had this willpower, because I look back where I came from. I came from a hard spot in life. My mother and father died when I was 2 years of age. And I began some materialistic gain in life. But when I began to win with the materialistic stuff, I began to drink more, because I was very uncomfortable with what I was doing with people and everything, So it just gave me the opportunity to drink more, and so definitely I used to say that all the time when I went to the meeting. I got willpower. I could do this. Matter of fact, I used to tell my counselor when I was in the rehab, my counselor used to be one-on-one with me, and my counselor said, William, when you leave there, go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I said I could stay away. I started telling her 6 months. I think the last time I told her, I said I could stay away 2 years. I could stay away, but sometime when I was drinking, I would stop drinking to get my life back in order. And soon as I get my life back in order, I take a drink and pull everything right back down on top of me, But I didn't understand nothing about alcoholism. I ain't understand nothing. This other part of the book where he's talking about drinking now. There used to be a guy in the meeting, the part where he said nobody pours liquor down your mouth. There used to be a guy in the meeting, and when somebody come in, they say they had a slip. He said, no, that's not a slip, you know. He said, let me tell you what a slip is. He said, now you're standing in the bus stop, okay? And a bus ran through the bus stop and hit you in your beak and knock you into that liquor store, and one of those ballers turn over and pour it in your mouth. He said, that's a slip. Now, he must have read this book, man, because Dr. Marr, he said, nobody pours liquor in your mouth, man. You know, it's a choice that you make. And I'm going to tell you, sometimes that choice wasn't mine. A lot of time, I would go, they would tell me to stay away from people, places, and things, right? And I would say in my mind, I know these people longer than I know you, so you can't tell me though, but these people were drinking. They was going into the bars and stuff like that. And I would follow them into the bar, trying to get some pleasure out of the bar without drinking. And as soon as somebody said, give them a drink, my hand, I'd pick it up and drink it without me even thinking about the consequence behind, you know. And I would come back to Alcoholics Anonymous. They welcome me back every time, you know. So I'm grateful for that they seem to give me that type of love, you know, and I would be grateful for that, you know, whatever I could do, whatever I could do to help service-wise, I'm willing to do that because I love my life today. I have a wonderful life. It is not about the outside, the rearranging of the inside of me. You know, most days I'm comfortable with my life wherever I go. You know, I got the chance to accept William. Because before I didn't like myself and I didn't accept myself. I wanted to be everybody except for William. But y'all taught me how to go inside and see what God had given me was a beautiful heart. And one of the guys, he's not in recovery, you know. He's an older gentleman. We get up and go to the gym and work out. But he called me a young fella. He said, hey, that's a young boy. I said, you're right. I saw him young at heart. And he just looked at me and he didn't know what to say, you know. I'm 75 years old, my heart is young, you know. So because I don't have those, most of the time I know how to get rid of those things that stand in the way of God coming into my life. And that's what I try to do, bring God into my life. So I'm glad to be here, and I certainly identify with the reading of Dr. Bob. And I'm grateful, Bob and Bill, that God seemed fit to bring them together to be here for us 90 years later. Thank you.
Thank you, William. It's good to see you. Hi, Jim.
How you doing, Pickle family? It's good to see you. I love you dearly. I'm so glad to finally get back in here tonight. But on your reading, it never fails. Again, I love your all's format. I love how you go line by line, and by the grace of my higher power, you know, I get a chance to do that more and more. But it still is so surprising to me and so wild that, you know, it started out in 1935, but everything he wrote, is the proper word wrote or writ? But anyway, you know, he wrote this 2 pages in 1935 or whatever, but I just did that this week, you know. He's talking about something that happened so many years ago about what is really going in my life today. You know, as y'all were reading this, you know, it said, what did a man do that was different from all the others that was done or said? You know, right there was a 12-step. You know, I'd heard about alcoholism all my life, whether it was a rehab or being in prison doing a program. But it wasn't until I had hit my bottom and my ears perked up when another drunk talked my language. You know, 35 plus years in heavy, serious drinking that took me to a bottom and then grabbed my shovel. But then if you go on down the page and it talks about a spiritual approach, it was that spiritual approach when somebody actually started telling me about the 3rd step prayer. You know, that actually started happening in my life. And then it goes on down and it says, far more important is the fact he was the first living human and with whom had ever talked. You know, that's a relationship. That's a related. Every time I walk into a meeting and how I hear a real alcoholic start talking, I can relate on a personal level. And I know I'm where I should be because these are my people. When you can talk about your life, and I did exactly the same thing, I felt the exact same thing, those emotions are real, and then I relate to you on a personal level, that gets serious and that gets my attention. And and then again, you go farther down in the pages, and he's talking about all these wonderful blessings. And when I first come in the program, sobriety didn't sound fun. Drinking was my solution. I thought that once I drank, my whole world was okay. But when I got sober, I was scared to death. I mean, I just did not or couldn't fathom the idea of going the rest of my life without a drink. But right there in the black and white, right there, he talks about sobriety and he talks about the promises. And 15 months plus later, those promises are actually happening in my life. I'm getting healthier. I have a lot of friends. They actually respect me. Never in my million years have I ever thought I'd ever have anybody respect me or trust me, let alone and love me and appreciate for the mess I am today. And then again, it goes on to passing what you learn to others that need, who want or need it badly. That's another 12 steps. And then it talks about the 4 basic service things and the reason why we do it. When I first come into Area 64, it might as well have been French or Spanish. But the longer I stayed in there, I realized how much joy it was in doing service work. And that the more I got out of me, the more I was actually happier because I wasn't thinking all my crap. I was worried about yours. And then, somewhere in the middle of that beautiful miracle, you're getting healthy, or whoever the person I was working with or helping. And then I was getting healthy because I was letting my higher power deal with my crap while I helped you with yours. It's just amazing. And then this is actually kind of, funny about the obsession, because it goes down and says that, he really had that obsession for a couple years. I was spared that. I think that's where it says sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, because I was spared that. About 4 months into my recovery, the obsession of everything, which, mine was drugs and alcohol, all that obsession left me. And as long as I kept reading and going to meetings and working with people that were in the program, I have still to this day yet, by the grace of God, have ever wanted that. And then it tells me again, intellectual pride. It tells me do not be too smart. Always be teachable. And then, of course, at the very bottom, what I find most crucial is that I cannot do this alone. I have to have help. It is a we program. And to get all that out of what? 1.5 pages? 2 pages? That's crazy. But to end it, I know I've been long-winded, but I do have one funny note. I love it when you're talking about the read about how he's carrying that plant home. I carried a monkey home one time. I don't know where you get a monkey, but yeah, a real live monkey. I don't know where I got it still this day, but I came home with a real live monkey. My parents about had a fit. Of course, I went to jail for that, by the way. But you gotta love a little bit of the humor. We are not a glum lot. But thank God I'm sober and I am not bringing home any more monkeys. So God is good, and again, it's so good to see you all. And thank you for reminding me that service work does matter.
Thank you, Jim. Glad to see you. Hi, Jamie.
Hey. Hi, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic. And Timmy, never say never about the monkey, because I know what's on your farm. So don't give me that. I know better. Good to be with all of you tonight. It is a blessing that we are about to celebrate 90 years of a program that is incredibly successful and works 100% of the time for 100% of the people that will follow the action outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous the way that it is laid out. I hear people talk about in meetings in the fellowship all the time, my program. It's not my program. There's only one program. It's the program of recovery as it's outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous that gets applied in my life. And I have to remember that. If I'm making it my program, then I'm taking it buffet style, and I'll take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I'm not going to touch any of that over there. And if I truly want to be recovered from the seemingly hopeless state of mind and body, I need to take the steps as they are outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Here's what I love about Dr. Bob's story. Just like Bill's story, they are both classic 12-step calls. They're telling us maybe not all of the details of their life, but they are telling us what it was like, what happened, and what it was like for them once they sobered up. Dr. Bob worked with over 5,000 alcoholics and touched their lives. Many stayed sober, many probably didn't, but still, he carried that message to 5,000 alcoholics. 90 years later, he's still carrying that message through the text in this book. So who knows by now how many millions of lives Bill and Dr. Bob have touched with those classic 12-step calls as they are outlined in the book. I love the 4 reasons here. Sense of duty. It is a pleasure, because in doing so I'm paying my debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. And because every time I do, it's a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. All of those things are true for me. One of my greatest pleasures today, and something that we do in this group for those of us who sponsor, is we do Big Book sponsorship. So you might ask, what the hell does that mean? Here's what generally happens in so many meetings. We give a newcomer a big book, and we give them our phone number, and we say, read these pages and call me. But one of the things we don't do is we don't bother to find out if they can even read. Number one. And chances are they're not going to read it because they're not desperate enough or willing to. So here's what I love doing. If I work with you, those who know that I do, you call me, you read to me while I'm driving down the road in the big truck, and we'll talk about what's in these pages, and we will help you find yourself in this book. One of the things about the book itself is that the best way for me to find it, when I'm in a meeting, I read it in the we and the us and the they and the way it's written. But when I read it for myself, and it's what I try and teach those that I work with, I read it in the first person. I read it in the I. Because I'm trying to find out who I am in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what it does is it leads me to my God. And that really leads me to a relationship with myself, which is absolutely magnificent. In Dr. Bob's story, he talks about fighting that disease, that mental obsession for the first 2 years. Instead of having that white light spiritual experience, he had the spiritual awakening that comes slower, and it comes through practice. I'm grateful I did not go through the desire to drink for my first 2 years. I don't know that I would have made it. Mine was relieved rather soon. But then I also did something that was suggested to me early on. I just simply asked God to remove this obsession. And I kept asking God to remove the obsession. And because I'm human and have lots of defects of character still, all these years later, when I'm obsessing about something else, I ask God to remove those obsessions as well. That's pretty important for me. I love the way we study the book. You know, I think about our format sometimes and people are like, oh God, the format's too long. It takes 20 minutes to go through it. But everything in our format has a purpose and it has a place, just like everything in the big book has a purpose and has a place. And just like the big book, the format carries a message of depth and weight. And that's what we're supposed to have. You know, earlier in the reading, it was mentioned about those 3 things from the doctor's opinion. The threefold disease. And for years, I talked about it being a twofold disease. The mental obsession coupled with the allergy. And one day, boom, there it was. The third part. The spiritual malady. And when I accepted the fact that I had a spiritual malady at, I don't know, 24 and a half years sober or something like that, in so much emotional pain that I literally wanted to die. Didn't want to drink, but wanted to die. I hit my knees, I prayed, and I catapulted my happy ass back into this book. I was going to meetings, I was doing all that stuff. But I was not effectively using the program as it always is to me. So now I am on this journey. And one of the greatest joys of my life is to be in this book every day. To take somebody else through this journey and help them discover who they are. Help them find who their God is. And that's where those 4 reasons apply in my life. And my life is filled with joy no matter how much pain and chaos I'm in the middle of, because I know that I'm still right in the middle of God's will for me, even if I'm experiencing something I don't like, because it's an experience I'm supposed to have. Grateful all of you are here, so thank you, and I'll kick the football to Donald.
Oh, no, don't kick me the football, because everybody then wants to tackle me. Good afternoon, everyone. Gandalf again. There's so many things in these 2 pages that I read earlier. Stuff that gets you right here, from the many years of experience that we had when we were drinking. We knew what we were into. We knew what we were going through, and but we also know what we went through to get out of it. So that's how we've been there. We've done that. We don't want to go back again. We want to go forward. So by paying person who brought it to him. You know, going all the way back to these two people, Dr. Bob and Bill. You know, they spent a lot of time learning about their disease, about how to get out of under this rock, this weight, this ominous thing that's in their life, with bringing everybody down, you know, from families to nations almost, you know. But I'm so grateful that they took the time out of their days and their lives to write these books or this book and put everything together and do the footwork and stuff to help me. Because I wouldn't be here right now without them. Nor would I be here without you. So if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, stuff, just, you know, even just by being here, just by you saying these few words and stuff, you know, it's all worth it. And, you know, I listen to you guys, and I feel the, you know, part of your life. Because you share with me who you are and what this program means to you. It's like, you know, it's none of my business if you want to go out and drink again. But I sure hope you don't. I'll do whatever I can to help you from doing that. But I know, you know, some of my sponsees have other issues that they're fighting. Other addictions, and also a couple with mental disorders. And those are the guys that, you know, it really bothers me that I can't help them more. But I'm learning more and more every day so that I can be of more help to other people. So, you know, my life isn't perfect. There's still ups and downs, and I still get butthurt, but, you know, talking to somebody about, you know, in the program and stuff, you know, really helps soothe things and get a different perspective. And then it's like, oh yeah, okay, now I understand, and it's okay. So that's about all I got for today and stuff, you know, so I'm going to turn back over to Tappin' Pickle there. Toe Tapper. Love you guys. There's nothing you can do about it.
I'm going to come in real quick just because I can. I want to touch a little bit on the first comment that Jamie made in reference to the end of the recap, where it talks about Bill giving Bob a little bit to drink that night and then a bottle of beer the next morning because of him having to perform a surgery that day. And then the question, let us ask ourselves individually if we are spiritually prepared to do 12-step work with a wet one in this fashion. And I could say without a shadow of a doubt, when I was new, when I was several years in the program, there was no way. Because I wasn't confident enough in me, my knowledge, the work I had done in the program. But I have worked with wet ones over the last couple of years. And you know, they've survived it, I've survived it. God gave me the words and the means. And, like Dr. Bob, I did live with that craving, that obsession of I want it. And I don't know if it was 2 years. I don't know how long it was. I didn't really keep track. But all I know is one day it was gone. And that was when I started. I can't really say that was when I really started moving ahead in the program. I just started recognizing that was a God thing. It wasn't anything that I had done. And then moving back into spending a great deal of time passing on what I've learned to others who want and who need it badly. I've shared with people who need it, knowing that they don't necessarily want it right now, but I'm still passing on seeds, passing on some information, planting the seeds. And maybe hopefully, even if they don't want it right now, but they're still asking questions, I'll sit, I'll talk. And maybe one day those seeds will take root. And then they'll start to grow and sprout. There was a really long time in early sobriety that working with others was not much of a pleasure. It felt more of a chore. And again, because I wasn't confident in my knowledge. I didn't really know what information to give them. But the longer I hang out in this room and the more I get into the book and I find what's in the book, I know. I'm talking to people and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's go to this page, let's go to that page. Because I'm starting to know where things are in the book. And it is a pleasure to watch other people grow. To all of a sudden see the lights come on and hey, somebody's home. To see the lights come on. And to know that once was just a seed planted in a barren piece of dirt, all of a sudden is taking root and a sprout's coming. And yeah, I enjoy spending time with other people. Sometimes I wish I didn't have to work so I could spend more time working with other people. And that's a big change from where I used to be. But also because I want to ensure that these rooms are still here years from now. For anybody else who may need to come in here in the future. I don't know that it'll be my son. I don't know that it won't be my son. I don't know that it won't be his kids or his friends. But I want to make sure that there is an AA who still works through the book like we do, available for when the next person walks in that door. So I don't see working with others as a chore anymore. I enjoy doing it. It's a privilege, it's an honor. And I love just sitting down and talking with people and seeing that growth. And then there's also touching on, my family has changed. My home life has changed. My work has changed. Because I'm more confident in me. I'm more confident at work. Because I'm more comfortable in my skin. I can share things and talk more with people in my family. I don't have to hide it anymore. I don't have to feel like they're not going to love me anymore if they find out. And then my closing line of his, your Heavenly Father will never let you down. I walked away from God so many times. But regardless of how many times I've walked away, He's always there when I walk back. And I know He's never going to walk away from me. And I am going to leave it there. So, Jamie, would you like to read our closing?
I would, but I want to touch on something you said first, Trish. And that's the comment about being spiritually fit to have to work with a wet one, to possibly have to give them a drink. When I was new in Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is one of the reasons that we do 12-step work in tandem with another recovered alcoholic, we used to take people to detox all the time. And I can remember sitting in the back seat of a car with a wet one, puking his guts out on more than one occasion, having to just give him sips, small sips, out of a half pint in order to keep him alive long enough to get him to a detox. The reason is because when you happen to be at that stage, you are in deep, deep danger of going into seizures. Known a lot of drug addicts who died from overdoses, but never knew a drug addict who died from kicking dope. But I've known plenty of alcoholics who have died from trying to kick alcohol by themselves. And while oftentimes we can get to Alcoholics Anonymous and detox ourselves, which is absolutely wonderful, there are those times when we need help. And it even talks about that in the doctor's opinion, that sometimes we feel that a hospitalization is required. Last thing about Dr. Bob's story. Bill gave him that drink and those beers. He went out and he made his amends that night. Is it probably wise for us to do that? Nah, we probably ought to go through the rest of the steps first. However, 24 hours sober, he and Bill were working with AA number 3, Bill Dotson. Dr. Bob was out on his first 12-step call 24 hours later. He knew that it wasn't all about him. He needed to help somebody else. And he found the help that he needed himself by giving of himself to do that. And he kept it very simple. These folks kept it simple. They didn't get into all of the psychological analysis and stuff that we do today in Alcoholics Anonymous. We have a pathway that works 100% of the time, every time. And in closing, and here's where we find our 12-step prayer. From page 164, our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order, but obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
And we will go ahead and close out in our normal pickle fashion, since we're not in the same room and we gather around the table and hold hands as we pray out. We hold our hands in this meeting up in the screen. And that's our way of connecting as we pray out. And we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms, especially those who may die tonight, either because they haven't found their way to us yet, or they weren't ready when they walked in and they left. So we'll take that moment of silence and we'll follow that with the Lord's Prayer. So here's your moment. Thank you. And who brings us from shame to grace if we let him?
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in the heavens. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Keep coming back.
Thanks for folks.
Everybody is my good side.